Okay, remember that they're changing my voice. So this video is about Isaiah 28. And as you'll see in this video series where we go over Isaiah 27 through 30, you'll see that it's very difficult to put the Bible in context in a short amount of time. You have to focus on the central moral principles. Then it doesn't matter if you're getting these details wrong. So we're going to actually go over 27, 28, 29, and 30. That's 4 chapters of Isaiah over this series. And we're going to be at like maybe 2.5 hours or so after this thing is done, give or take. Okay, and it still won't entirely be in context. And keep in mind, I'm also breaking it down in a way that makes it a lot easier to understand. So, do you think God wants you to solve the puzzle of the Bible more? Or to be morally precise and know God from being morally precise? The difference between the tree of life and the tree of knowledge. Right? The way, the truth, and the life. As water reflects the face, so one's life reflects the heart. And the Lord weighs the heart. Not your understanding of the Bible in terms of connecting all the dots, in terms of translating all the scriptures. And that's important to note. So Isaiah 28. Woe to that wreath, the pride of Ephraim's drunkards, to the fading flower, his glorious beauty, on the head of a fertile valley. To that city, the pride of those laid low by wine. They're laid low by what? By wine. Not just from drinking and being senseless and reckless and careless and selfish and so on and so forth. Okay? They're confused by what they're living for and what they're dying for. The wine in communion, at Mass, what have you, the Last Supper, stands for the blood that was shed for righteousness' sake, with an emphasis on the essence of that blood, which is Christ's blood, which is my blood. It also stands for who's reproducing with who and who's becoming one flesh, right? You know, the bread stands for the flesh, the wine stands for the blood. The two will leave, in Genesis, right? The two will leave their families and become one flesh and one blood, right? Their blood will flow into their child. And it's even before that, when you think about blood as a figurative idea, they are mixing their blood. See, the Lord has one who is powerful and strong, like a hailstorm and a destructive wind, like a driving rain and a flooding downpour. He will throw it forcefully to the ground. No, is he talking about a brute beast, a knucklehead, Mike Tyson or something like this, Tyson Fury? No. Is he talking about a nerd, right? Is he talking about Bezos? No. He's talking about a holy martial warrior with a holy martial warrior spirit. Something that you aren't going to see in the churches, not as an official church member at least. If I happen to go into a church, that's where, you would see it. So again, see, the Lord has one who is powerful and strong. Spiritual power, pow-ear, right? Spirit, it. Like a hailstorm and a destructive wind, like a driving rain and a flooding downpour. He will throw it forcefully to the ground. Okay, that wreath, the pride of Ephraim's drunkards, will be trampled underfoot. Now let's go down to verse 17. This is one of the verses I quote the most in the Bible to help you understand the Bible. Isaiah 28:17. I will make justice the measuring line and righteousness the plume line. Hail will sweep away your refuge to lie, and water will overflow your hiding place. Okay, hail and water. Okay, so righteousness and justice being conveyed by a martial warrior. Go back up to verse 2. See, the Lord has one who is powerful and strong, like a hailstorm and a destructive wind, like a driving rain and a flooding downpour. So what's going to sweep away your refuge to lie? The Son of God, His Spirit, God's Spirit in the Son of God, me, in the Spirit of the Father. The Greek word for wind is said to be the same as the Greek word for spirit. So, like a hailstorm, like the Spirit of God coming in a martial, striking sort of way. A destructive wind. Okay, marshaling. Wind marshals things. It moves things around. Not just destroying things. Like a driving rain, driving it to a place, driving you away, what have you. Marshaling you to hell. like a flooding downpour. Now, what is being attacked here? Obviously, all the wicked, right, in verse 17, but what is he referring to at first? That wreath, the pride of Ephraim's drunkards, will be trampled underfoot. That fading flower, his glorious beauty, set on the head of a fertile valley, will be like figs ripe before harvest. As soon as people see them and take them in hand, they swallow them. So their life worth is being swallowed. Okay, it says in Jeremiah, right, Nebuchadnezzar has swallowed us whole. It's being swallowed in a sense by the righteous spirits, the spirit of the righteous, the spirit of God, the spirit of the Son, and it's being swallowed in a sense by the spirit of the wicked who remain on earth, especially when they reproduce, what have you. In that day, the Lord Almighty will be a glorious crown, a beautiful wreath for the remnant of his people, those who actually serve God Almighty. He will be a spirit of justice to the one who sits in judgment, a source of strength to those who turn back the battle at the gate. So in the spirit of God is the spirit of the righteous, and the spirit of the Son of God, me. And it all comes together to strike the spirit and the souls of the wicked and to take away their life worth and to marshal them in hell, as they'll never have righteousness and justice. They're said to be in a famine. Okay, they're spiritually dead. They're said to be dead, and they're mourning whether they see it that way or not, because the brain and the being is naturally calibrated to mourn if they don't have the Spirit of God, true love, etc. But some people slip into denial and they start looking like a very disturbing image of a devil, or, the Penguin or Freddy Krueger. And some people get all pretty and live a fairy life like Lucifer or Apollo, like Power Rangers, like the fairy depictions of angels in the church, some kind of Luciferian sissy pretending to be living a good life or something. And these also stagger from wine and reel from beer. Priests and prophets stagger from beer and are befuddled with wine. They reel from beer. They stagger when seeing visions. They stumble when rendering decisions. All the tables were covered with vomit, and there is not a spot without filth. Who is he trying to teach? To whom is he explaining his message? To children weaned from their milk? To those just taken from the breast? For it is, do this, do that, a rule for this, a rule for that, a little here, a little there. Don't worry, I'll explain this to you in a second here. Very well then, with foreign lips and strange tongues, God will speak to this people, to whom he said, this is the resting place, let the weary rest, and this is the place of repose, but they would not listen. So then the word of the Lord to them will become, do this, do that, a rule for this, a rule for that, a little here, a little there, so that as they go, they will fall backward. Right? God's plan in reverse. They will fall backward. They will be injured and snared and captured. Therefore hear the word of the Lord, you scoffers who rule this people in Jerusalem. You boast, we have entered into a covenant with death, with the realm of the dead. We have made an agreement with an overwhelming, when an overwhelming scourge sweeps by, it cannot touch us. For we have made a lie our refuge and falsehood our hiding place. So this is what the Lord, the sovereign Lord, says. See, I lay a stone in Zion, a tested stone, a precious cornerstone for a sure foundation. The one who relies on it will never be stricken with panic. I will make justice the measuring line and righteousness the plume line. Hail will sweep away your refuge, the lie, and water will overflow your hiding place. Your covenant with death will be annulled. Your agreement with the realm of the dead will not stand. When the overwhelming scourge sweeps by, you will be beaten down by it. As often as it comes, it will carry you away morning after morning, by day and by night, it will sweep through. The understanding of this message will bring sheer terror. Let's stop here for a second. So he's saying that the righteous will be a spirit of justice. The righteous one will strike these people, but even he and the righteous, is one way to interpret it, will be thrown off a little bit. But they have the armor of God on. Those who don't are like children. You say, who's Christ trying to explain this to? Right? A bunch of punks, a bunch of Simpsons. They're like children. Like Christ says in the New Testament, right? It's like children in the marketplace, saying we, played a song and we sang and you didn't dance and you didn't mourn. Okay, they're acting like children, like little teasers, like little kids acting like punks, like, too immature to respond in a mature manner. Okay? And so, this person, Christ ends up saying, hey, stop and treat the poor fairly. Do this, right? Treat the poor fairly. Pass the war on poverty plan. Rally and obey God through me. Right? When they could just automatically be doing the right thing, I have to tell them everything that they need to do. So let's do this, do that. It goes on to say, very well then, with foreign lips and strange tongues, God will speak to this people. So God is speaking in his language, but it's foreign to them. And also as the application of God is speaking to them through someone who is not a Jew. That is me. Okay, depending on how you define a Jew. And they're not listening. Okay, only those who are listening truly get, mental and spiritual rest. And the word of the Lord becomes, do this, do that, a rule for this, a rule for that. So you need to do this. From now on, that's the rule. From now on, this, and this, instead of them just obeying God through me and naturally finding the path. So as they go forward, they fall backwards. But also it has the application of demons are teaching them because they're listening to demons. They're not listening to me. It says they will not listen. They're listening to demons. And so as they listen to the demon and follow their rules, they fall backwards. They're injured, ensnared, and captured. Therefore, hear the word of the Lord, you scoffers who rule this people in Jerusalem. These people are punks. They're scoffing at God's commands. They're saying, hey, why should we follow Chukwuemeka? So he's not a Jew. There's he's a black guy from California. So what? And they're scoffing. And they're mocking. They're saying, oh dear, what's going to happen to us? And they're saying punk stuff. So what happens to them? Well, they say, hey, we already have made our arrangements. We've made a deal with those people who are in our ways, the walking dead, those without the Spirit of God. Like it says in Isaiah 31, I believe it is, when it talks about how the Egyptians were relying on their flesh and not the Spirit of God. So they're relying on flesh, the spirit of the dead, the things that decay, and not the everlasting Spirit of God. So they said they made a deal with death. Their covenant is with technology, it's with scientists, it's with the government, it's with the churches that refuse to obey God through me, which is all the churches, etc. One of the or more, all of the above, what have you. And they've made lies and psychology and falsehood their refuge and hiding place. But God says, I lay a stone in Zion, in the fortress of Zion, 2 Samuel 5, the city of David. Not you people with your immature, ways, sticking your nose up and way out of touch with reality. A stone in Zion, a precious cornerstone. Not you worms trying to tell me what to do. Please don't insult our people, acting like punks, but a precious and chief cornerstone for a sure foundation. The one who relies on it will never be stricken with panic. Okay, well, you people are like, what do we do? Let's just do what the government says because we're scared and there's no other way to look at it. Some people swear up and down that that's not the case and they just don't believe in God. Bull. Everyone knows that they have no viable counter-argument to God, which was what came first, being so powerful that he didn't need something to create him. Because he's all good, all knowing, and all powerful, and certainly not to correct him. He's God. And so they are stricken with panic, but those who are in the spirit of justice and righteousness aren't, and they are this force coming from God through the Son and the divine order that are sweeping away their refuge to lie. That's what's happened recently. Over 1 million Americans died in coronavirus. Where did they go? Where they lived a lie. They went to places where people live a lie. Their churches, their mosques, their synagogues, all the religions, all the groups in the world have been exposed. They look like kids these days. They look like Power Rangers. Republicans look like idiots. Democrats look like idiots. Politicians look like idiots. Military, police, you name it. And some even want to argue with me, say, don't say that about us. Even though it says one nation under God, they look so immature, so stupid, as they damage themselves more by persecuting. They can't even correct their mistake. I'm 43 years old. They persecuted me my whole life. And as groups of people, some of them die, another person replaces them, and they still can't correct their mistake. That's how stupid they are. That's how much they live a lie. That's how much they're brain dead, spiritually dead. They are stupid. Stupid, stupid, stupid. Dumb and numb instead of sensitive to injustice. And masterfully responding to injustice. Responsibility, urgency, urgency. They're bleeding stupid abominations. Okay. So again, as often as it comes, it will carry you away morning after morning, by day and by night. It will sweep through. The understanding of this message will bring sheer terror. The bed is too short to stretch out on, the blanket too narrow to wrap around you, right? So they get no comfort. The Lord will rise up as he did at Mount Perazim. He will rouse himself as in the valley of Gibeon to do his work, his strange work, and perform his alien task. For those of you who've been watching my videos for a long time, it's probably mostly government workers, not completely. You know that I've been saying that the problem that other people have, arguably the central problem, and in a sense it is that they're foreign to the Royal African Falcon Martial Art Order. And those who are in the Royal African Falcon Martial Art Order are foreign to them because their ancestors didn't have the heart to stay with the righteous, and they started to spread out, and they lost their way. They didn't have the foresight, the insight, the wisdom. So God's work is the Royal African Falcon Martial Art work. Amos 9:7, Genesis 10, Nahum 3. And as such, the soul brother of soul brothers, the essence of martial arts, the essence of monotheistic and true martial arts, the essence of what it really means to be black, though the masses of black people, like the other races, don't understand. That God made man in his image, not because the flesh is black or the hair is curly or whatever, in this kind of spiritual essence of soul brother image, which is the image of God that Satan, the neo-colonialist that took over the world, that leads the world astray, right? The neo-colonial spirit is trying to blind you to, like it says in Paul's letters. So you don't see the glory of God, which is that original image, which is the morally precise, righteous person that God was trying to create in the garden, who was given the obstacle course of the world to perfect himself and has pinnacled in me. It goes on to say, now stop your mocking or your chains will become heavier. We see it with moral, mental, spiritual, and romantic clarity and how far other people are from it. Their chains have become heavier. That didn't happen overnight. The Lord Almighty has told me of the destruction decreed for the whole land. So when people are quote unquote respecting each other and encouraging each other to be in cultures that are mocking God by their actions, no matter how kind they're trying to be, are they helping them? No, their chains are becoming heavier. But when I tell them stop and I chastise them to the extreme and I put them on the defensive as they try to think of some way to defend themselves, am I helping them? Yes. But they're not going to make it to heaven unless they obey God through me as fast as they can. Time is running out, and no one should reproduce no matter what. This is part of the destruction God has decreed for the whole land. Not the new heaven and the new earth that God is creating, but the old earth and what the pagans perceive to be heaven, which is their old quote-unquote heaven. It is like, the Greco-Roman mythology. Okay, listen and hear my voice. Pay attention and hear what I say. When a farmer plows for planting, does he plow continually? Does he keep on breaking up and working the soil? When he has leveled the surface, does he not sow caraway and scatter cumin? Does he not plant wheat in its place, barley in its plot, and spelt in its field? Now again, these things can stand for different components of the human race, the different components of God's plan. There's a lot of things they connect with too, like the wheat connects to the bread. And the cumin in Matthew 23, right, where they're supposed to pay tithes of 1/10 of their spices, mint, dill, and cumin, I believe it is. Okay, and where it talks about, okay, so his God instructs him and teaches him the right way. Caraway is not threshed with a sledge, nor is the wheel of a cart rolled over cumin. Caraway is beaten with a rod and cumin with a stick. Now stop there. So it's a Royal African Falcon Martial Art Order, not the police or the military or other martial artists, right? It's my religion, not other religions. There's a proper way to do things. There's a proper order, a proper process. Grain must be ground to make bread, so one does not go on threshing it forever. The wheels of a threshing cart may be rolled over it, but one does not use horses to grind grain. All this also comes from the Lord Almighty, whose plan is wonderful, whose wisdom is magnificent. So what wisdom went into your system? Does it come from God? Well, one way you would know is, how does it relate to the essence of being a righteous African, because God made man in his image in the beginning, and the Garden of Eden is figurative. So where was that interaction? It was actually in Africa. Where was the interaction with Noah, as far as anyone could tell, when it's superimposed on? It was in Africa. We have no reason to believe that that occurred in the Mesopotamian area. No reason. If we look at history and we look at the evidence, we don't see a righteous nation rise up in the Middle East. We just don't see that. We see countless pagan idols. We see no evidence of a righteous nation. When we do the wordplay with the Garden of Eden, and I have a video about this, it's actually it's in the spiritual realm, but where the interaction actually takes place is in Africa. They're actually pointing to, if I remember correctly from the video, it's been a while, they were pointing to Egypt, and there's certain locations, certain names of things that they've encoded in the explanation of the Garden of Eden. Okay, so there's cryptograms and anagrams in the Bible, and Moses means to draw out, and Jacob, means to overreach, to supplant, okay, to assail, and Jeshurun means the upright one. Okay, and we see that I believe it's Leb Kamai is a cryptogram for Babylon, and Rahab is a cryptogram for Egypt. So there's these connections time and time again that are often admitted by even Eurocentric Christian authors and people, the people who made Bible Gateway. They admit these things are there. And so it is with the Garden of Eden. Okay? So scientists actually, in that case, they help shed light on what has happened by telling you, and it's hard to say exactly what their motives were, but it's very interesting that they did. I think they like to hide things in plain view, by telling you that mankind started in Africa. As we look at the spectrum of people, it lines right up. Okay? We see that very ancient and righteous look in Africans. And as people look different from them, okay, we see that they've changed in different types of people have changed in the different locations they've gone to. And as they've changed for more than one reason, they've forgotten the original religion of God. No offense to anybody. I don't think there's any other way to look at this and to have a rational and sound and logical conclusion. And when God is looking at you, He's saying, are you going to default with your race and say, my race must be right? That's selfish, right? See flesh. And the Spirit is everything and flesh means nothing. The Spirit is the way, the truth, and the life. The truth. The truth of the situation is that the overwhelmingly logical assumption and sound conclusion is that we come from Africa, and the true religion is a black African religion, because as we look at Berbers and other people there, they often have gone somewhere else and come back if they're not black African, or every single time. And they're not as deep as black Africans. There is no Berber equivalent of Martin Luther King or Mandela or, Shaka Zulu, okay? Those guys are cool. I like them myself, what have you. But these are the facts. Thank you.